Good morning. Here's a quick and brief introduction to ethical hacking, securing technologies, people and processes. Now, of course, even when whenever you're practicing ethical hacking, please realize that you're not just tackling a technology, but you're also trying to hack people and processes, right? Technology hacking is oftentimes a bit more challenging if you don't have access to people and processes. So oftentimes what hackers will do would be to hack people and processes first. That's why you see everything from phishing emails to looking at process deficiencies, supply chain attacks, amongst so forth, right? Of course, so keep that in mind, of course, that you've got to keep people, processes and technologies in mind, not just one of them. At the bottom of this left lower corner of the slide, you see something that says NMAP-help /crep, and so that's basically NMAP is a network mapping software which is great for doing recon. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But if you ever want to try that out, if you are in a sandbox environment or you have NMAP installed on your system, this is the way to find topical areas. So your grep will just find information for you and provide you all the syntax and commands and all that stuff. So let's start. So hands-on techniques and tools for ethical hacking. So what we need to do is understand that as you get into the method scanning, enumeration, right? So scanning is what you can find, it's recon. Enumeration is what you can extract from that, right? Enumerate it, exploit, and then what do you say you scan? What you figure out is called enumeration. What you can then use to capitalize on what you've found and what you've figured out is exploitation. And what do you do after you exploit? That's post-exploitation. So basically it's from information gathering to post-op cleaning. To understand there are ethical considerations and you have to be responsible using hacking skills, using NMAP, because you don't really want to suddenly do something just because you were curious, but inadvertently suddenly have the guard come over to your house or the police come over to your house, right? So tools and technologies used in ethical hacking, we'll talk a little bit about network scanners to vulnerability assessment tools, and then just give you a quick snapshot of a hands-on demo applying tools in a controlled environment. These are basically just screenshots of how you proceed with different things. So remember, tempered curiosity is key. Understand the logic, and don't be a script jockey. A script jockey is somebody who just gets a script and puts that in, and you don't know what it's going to do. Sometimes it's going to do something that might not be good for you or the company or the organization you're trying to recon, and of course could land you in trouble. So be very, very careful. So Metasploit and NMAP are two tools that are very, very popular. NMAP is for recon, Metasploit is for the exploit, right? So it's basically exploit, say Metasploit, NMAP, mapping and exploitation. So NMAP emphasizes network scanning and discovery, finding devices, software ports on the network, basic exploits. And remember that port scanning is similar to walking around the outside of a house, trying to find doors and checking whether the doors are locked or not. And this is from a very nice chap called Aravind Jose T, one of my students from 2024 in Galway. So I thought that was a very, very nice example. And Metasploit, on the other hand, is a framework housing numerous exploits, ranging from payloads to for Androids to checking FTP exploits and so forth. So FTP is, of course, file transfer protocol. So once you know which doors are open and what rooms and closets are unlocked, you can exploit these vulnerabilities figure out what to install, e.g. a wiretap to sniff, what to clandestinely bring in as payloads, such as bring in a closet or let in bats, or what to disrupt, like removing a projector, rekeying a door, like encrypting for ransomware. If you want to try out some of them, there are many places to try them out, especially sandbox environment. Try Hackme has examples for both NMAP and Metasploit. So go ahead and give that a shot out there. But first things first, ethical hacking, remember, is not a ransom act. There is a cosmos to the chaos. There is some order to the madness. You find vulnerabilities so that you can close them to benefit people, businesses, and society. So ethical hacking starts with recon, footprinting, choosing the target, right? Human, process, technology to get your foot in the door, and understanding the attack surface. How lucrative is the prospecting? What surface can you actually hit? The larger the surface, and the more lucrative it is. So an attacker can collect the information using tools such as HTTP track to download an entire website to gather information about an individual, or using search engines such as Maltego to research about an individual through various links, job profiles, news, etc. The focus here is on scouting the target by using active tools, right? So you can use network mapping to search for different ports, to search for different operating systems that are running and so forth, or gather information, or passive tools such as dark web to find, are there existing things that are being exfiltrated and for sale? Don't visit the dark web, it's not very good. Public profiles, social networks, marketing research, dumpster diving, which is basically collecting information from dumpsters, from houses of people who typically work at higher levels or in some critical roles in companies, right? So that's what they call dumpster diving. Then the next one is after you've finished your reconnaissance or footprinting, you go into scanning. So then you have to find an easy and noticeable entry path into the network or system. Port scanning involves data gathering tools to listen to and detect open TCP and UDP. So that's a datagram protocol and a transmission control protocol running services on the target. Network scanning is used to detect active devices on the network and to find ways to exploit a network, right? So you're trying to find out active devices, or you're looking for ports. So you can listen to port scanning, or you can do network scanning to figure out how things are operating, what's open, what's not open, like trying out doors outside the house before you enter the house. Third is gaining access. Once you've figured out what might be open, what might be open for any kind of hasn't been spotted very well, be negligent. Next, you gain unauthorized access to the target systems, applications, or networks to exploit the system by downloading malicious software or applications, stealing sensitive information, getting unauthorized access, asking for ransom. Metasploit there is the most common tool used to gain access for social engineering, and social engineering is used as a widely used attack to exploit a target, right? If you can fool a person or a process, it's easier than trying to fool a technology. Oftentimes the technology itself is nothing but an automated process, so they keep the process piece in mind. Next comes maintaining access. Once you've entered, you are going to, the hacker will continuously exploit the system, launch everything from denial of service attack or distributed denial of service attacks, using the hijack system as a launching pad, or steal entire databases. APTs, advanced persistent threats, are things that hide in the background, constantly morphing and remorphing, and they're becoming devastatingly common, such as the 2020 SolarWinds attack. Then, of course, once you've stayed there, exfiltrated, done something dangerous, what hackers will do is they'll clear their tracks. Hackers will try and leave no trace, clues, or evidence, and without getting identified by incident response or by the forensic teams. This includes editing, corrupting, or deleting logs or registry values. The attacker also deletes or uninstalls folders, application software or ensures that the change files are traced back to their original value, right? So oftentimes you'll hear terms such as checksums and so forth, right? That's meant to maintain data integrity. Nobody's tampered. They'll sometimes reverse that to put it back in the original order, as if, oh, I think everything seems fine. It's as if you've rummaged through something and then you put everything back in order, so that when the owner returns, he or she doesn't feel like anybody's really violated the space. So they use everything from reverse HTTP shells, deleting cache and history to raise the digital footprint, using ICMP or Internet Controlled Message Protocol tunnels, so that you don't know who's pinging you, and all of that. So once again, you start off by with a recon, and then you scan the network, gain access, maintain access, and then you clear the track, everything from information gathering into post-op cleaning. So in terms of recon and vulnerability discovery, you have to understand attack surfaces. So importance of a target's attack surface is very, very useful. And you ask yourself, why are Windows machines and Androids so much vulnerable? Why are they attacked all the time? Mainly because most people in the world use Windows machines and Android OSs for mobile stuff. So if that's very popular, your attack surface opens up, because if many people are using it, the probability increases that most people are not maintaining it very well, patching it and doing all that, which opens up the opportunity to find the right attack vector, which is the mode of attack, right? What are you using to attack, and who you're attacking. So what are you using, who you're attacking. Who you're attacking is the attack surface, right? And to what extent will the attack proliferate? And then what you're attacking with is the attack vector. So of course, they will try and hackers will try and use things like WHOIS just to find out who runs the company, so that even if they want to do a phishing attack or spoof somebody, right, who are the main people in charge? And you can oftentimes find that in a WHOIS statement. Traceroute to see what hops, every single IP packet takes a hop, takes multiple hops to reach from point A to point B. If you can suddenly find a hop that's not well guarded, it's very much like hitting a stagecoach while it's traveling, rather than, or at a point which is not very well defended, rather than trying to hit the stagecoach while it's leaving the bank or arriving at another bank. And then of course NSLOOKUP, and that's a name server lookup, exploration objectives. Understand what kind of information WHOIS, Traceroute and NSLOOKUP reveal. Start building the attacker mindset, right? If you're doing ethical hacking, start thinking of how would you use this information for recon? How do you understand the system's footprints? So in your own leisure, try out WHOIS demo. Open your terminal and just type WHOIS, whatever it is, econsole.org or any particular domain or web address that you want, and see what information can you find. That tells you where they are, who are some of the main people, right? Are of course LinkedIn and so forth. They're also, try one or two well-known websites and see if they're showing you things like registrar or registration dates, contact information, administrative technical contacts. Are these good people to spoof and target, right? Or spoof by being them and set up phishing attacks. So ask yourself, how could attackers target individuals associated with a registration? What does a recent registration suggest, right? Does that suggest that it might be a pop-up shop by miscreants? If the registration is too late, right? It's very, very new. It could mean that somebody's just setting it up just to do something and then disappear. So keep these things in mind. So if you were to run a basic traceroute on a terminal, suppose we do a traceroute of econsole, right? And understand that organizations oftentimes will have multiple different addresses. So you'll see that it's sending packets, right? So it's saying we'll go through 64 hops max, 52 byte packets, and then some of them are obfuscated. And then it's saying it's going to an IP address 172.20.21.22.54, then 20.22.3, then it's jumping into 45, 250, 25, 129. Now once you know these IP addresses, you can now start figuring out who do these IP addresses belong to, right? You can reverse. So each hop is a part of a data supply chain. Hackers might want to start inquiring or sniffing about each of these hop IP addresses. So you can easily do something called dig-x to do a reverse DNS lookup. Who does it belong to? And if it ever says NX domain, that means that there is only an IP address, but there is no domain. It's just an IP address. There's no website associated with it, right? There's no dedicated domain scheduled for it, right? So these give you some internal information. So similarly, if you do NSLOOKUP, use the same website, EC Council, and use NSLOOKUP to reveal IP addresses associated with the domain. What are all the IP addresses that they have? Because it's a name server. So it's basically a database that contains all this information about particular organization. Identify authoritative name servers just by saying NSLOOKUP and then dash type, right? So what are the types? And then NS name servers for eccouncil.org. Then you can discover the name server information by saying NSLOOKUP. So Henry might be one of the name servers, right? .NS Cloudflare. So you know that it's being managed by Cloudflare, and it's called Henry, and it's a dedicated name server for EC Council. So food for thought, how could IP addresses be used to further network mapping? What vulnerabilities may exist on name servers? So important NSLOOKUP bits and bytes. Zone transfer is something very interesting. When a DNS server, so that's a domain name server, provides a full copy of its zone data, which is all records within a domain, to another DNS service. So when you're doing server transfers or DNS transfers, often used for replication between primary and secondary server, just in case something goes down, or you're changing from one group to another, different contracts or whatever it is, but there's a security implication. Zone transfers can reveal a wealth of internal network structure information to an attacker. Successful zone transfers should typically be restricted to authorized secondary DNS servers. We should not be allowed access, right? That's very, very important. So let's try NSLOOKUP, type AXFR, EC Council for the name server henry.nscloudflare.com to attempt a zone server, right? Which is dash type is equal to AXFR of the EC Council domain from the Cloudflare name server henry.ns. So we're trying to see if it's going to spill its guts. We weren't allowed, which is good. Right, so we're trying to have it spill its guts by saying, hey, I want to transfer all the domain information. Can you give me everything that's in there? We're trying to fool it by typing dash type is equal to AXFR for that particular name server. It didn't allow us, which is good defensive mechanism or a good preventative mechanism. But remember, things happen. In June 2017, the registrar responsible for Russian top-level domains accidentally enabled DNS zone transfers via AXFR, which led to 5.6 million records being accidentally exposed. This can also become a part of something called DNS poisoning. Continuing on NSLOOKUP discoveries, the other thing that you have with NSLOOKUP, not only DNS, is also looking at mail service. What kind of mail exchanges do you use? MX, of course, has mail exchange. So mail exchange specifies the mail servers responsible for receiving email for a domain. NSLOOKUP dash type is equal to MX EC Council. So what we're saying is, what is the type? Remember last time we were trying to do a zone transfer with AFXR. Now we're trying to say, what is the type? We want to look at the mail exchange. Results show that EC Council uses Microsoft Outlook for email, hackers then can start looking at Outlook vulnerabilities. The mail exchanger is equal to 0, means it was high priority. The server offers an IPv6 addresses, which is of course 8 sets of hexadecimals rather than 4 octets for IPv4. Security implication: knowing a target's mail service can help craft highly targeted phishing emails that appear to come from their own domain. And then of course potential email server vulnerabilities can be used for exploitation purposes, right? So if you can find out what the server is, you can then go into vulnerability database and look at what are the server vulnerabilities. Are there certain vulnerabilities for Microsoft Outlook? Could we then use that as our attack surface with an attack vector that could exploit it? So you've got zone transfer things, domain name server information, mail exchange information, all through NSLOOKUP. State of authority: record contains critical administrative information about its domain zone. So now if we say NSLOOKUP -type SOA ecouncil.org, now it will identify authoritative server origin fields to the primary main name server for the domain, which allows you a focal point for in-depth probing, right? And then of course, if the serial number, mind you, when you do that, if the serial number you find is low, it indicates infrequent updates to the zone file. Older systems with lax security may be susceptible to unauthorized zone transfers, right? AXFRs. So attackers look at many different things. It looks at these things such as, is the serial number low? It's not updating. They don't seem to update things. They might have been a bit negligent. So let's see if we can actually try and do something nefarious. And of course, it also has contact points. The administrator email address, which frequently should be obfuscated, and sometimes provide clues on who to contact for social engineering tactics, especially with smaller organizations or for smaller organizations. And this type of very specific targeting for social engineering is called spear phishing, right? So rather than phishing, this is called spear phishing because you're now trying to attack certain people, especially in smaller organizations who might be overwhelmed with different types of work, small businesses. They give you some interesting clues. So let's take a break.